Welcome to How Do They Afford That, the podcast that peeks into the financial lives of everyday Australians. I'm Michael Thompson. I'm a writer and the co-host of the podcast Fear and Greed Business News. And as always, I'm with Canna Campbell, financial planner, founder of Sugar Mama TV, the financial literacy platform that is on podcasts like this one, obviously, YouTube and books and Instagram and all over the place. Hello, Canna.
And TikTok.
TikTok as well.
Yes, I'm on TikTok.
I need to add that in. We've talked about TikTok in the past, and you have developed a bit of a following on there.
Well, it's growing. I need to give it a bit more tender loving care, but I'm having a lot of fun. I like TikTok because it's quite raw and you shoot in the moment and there's not this kind of trimming and perfecting like Instagram. But anyway, there is lots of fun, financially inspiring content for everyone there.
Speaking of fun and inspiring content, we have a great episode coming up today, and it is basically about Barbie, of all things. We will get to that in a moment, but I need to ask you for a savings hack or a tip first. Have you got a way that I can save a bit of money?
Yes, I do now. I don't know if it's necessarily your cup of tea. However, for anyone, and I'm not going to say just the ladies because this is for everyone, anyone who's interested in getting a free haircut, likes to get their lashes done, maybe a spray tan, their brows perhaps. I found on Facebook all these incredible groups that offer these services for free.
Really?
If for free. Under the one condition that they can take a couple of photographs for their social media accounts. So these are people who are professionally trained, but they obviously need some people like models essentially to help promote their services and show all the different techniques that they use and what the before and after results are. So the more I found, the more that then the algorithm within Facebook then presented me with. I'm now signed up to like 10 or 11 different local models needed. I could seriously get I could be just transformed into this incredible queen if I wanted to for free.
And how much would that save you? Say on let's go with nails. How much would it cost to get your nails done if you were to pay for it? Well, I don't.
Clearly, you've never had your nails done, but
clearly
it really varies. I'm actually someone who is a little bit more, believe it or not, I'm a little bit more low maintenance. I kind of prefer to embrace the natural, but if you get shellac, if you get gel, if you get gel, if you get acrylics, and often, how often do you do them? Some women get them done once a month. I get my toes painted once a month, but that's it for me. Whereas some women get their nails done every week. And then lashes. One of my best friends gets her lashes done, and that's $200 every 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And this actually, when I say haircut, it also includes hair extensions. Hair extensions are obscenely expensive. So if you are prepared to be a guinea pig and you want to save some money and you're on a tight budget and you don't want to let those self-care, self-love, the beauty supply treatments going, this is a good little hack to know about.
Speaking of free haircuts, did you know that once I was offered a free haircut? I was walking down a very kind of trendy street, and God, that makes me sound old saying that something was trendy. But I was walking down a very trendy street, and I walked past a very well-known kind of almost a celebrity kind of hairdresser place, and they said, "Oh, would you like to come in for a free haircut?" And I said no, because the thing was, 30 seconds earlier, I had just walked out of my hairdresser, having just had my hair cut and done. I'm like, what is it about my haircut that makes it look like I've had nothing done and that I need a free haircut? It was quite the insult.
Why do I feel like that is something that would only happen to you?
I suspect because it is something that would only happen to me. It was it was a bit of a blow to the confidence. I was, when you walk out, you had your haircut, if you go to the barber or you go to the hairdresser or wherever, and you go, yeah, this haircut looks good, and you walk out and someone goes, hey, you look like you need a haircut. Come in here. I just had one.
We'll even do it for free because you need one so badly.
Oh, it was harsh. But anyway, Facebook. So this is where we go if we want kind of free nails and free hair.
Literally search on Facebook, models, hair extension, lashes, nails, and all these groups come up. It is unbelievable.
Okay.
And there is a lot of money to be saved there.
Oh, that is a very good hack. Where do you keep pulling these from?
Someone actually gave it to me. I can't claim it as mine. I had a meeting with someone. They told me about how they get their haircut for free, and I was like, tell me more.
That is amazing.
And then I opened up, I'd say not Pandora's box, but the beauty box, and discovered it's not just a haircut, it's extensions, it's nails, it's spray tans, it's lashes, brows, acrylics, and there are some really cool creative things that they can do.
Well, I think we're going now then from haircuts and painted nails.
And spray tans and lashes and brows.
Actually, it is quite a good segue because we are, in fact, talking about Barbie and the Barbie movie. And it's actually a really good episode for investors today, or for potential investors who might be kind of lured in by the hype around certain investments. We're going to talk about how sometimes the substance and returns of an investment doesn't quite perhaps live up to the expectations, and the role as well, I suppose, that social media and even things like movies can play in that. And one of the triggers for this episode is, of course, the Barbie movie, as I have mentioned now 4 or 5 times so far. We will come to that in a moment, but first we need to just remind you that as you're listening, anything that we talk about is general in nature. It is never personal, investment, strategic, or product advice. It is purely for financial education purposes only.
Absolutely. Education first and education only. We don't know anything about your financial situation and what your goals and dreams are and what your risk profile may be. So please always bear that in mind and always speak to a financial planner when you need some personal advice.
Education first and education only. That's
good.
I like that.
I am pulling out the slogans today. I feel like I could almost take out a second side hustle as writing jingles and slogans for companies.
Well, I mean, education first, education only is just got kind of like Department of Education written all over it. Kind of, you could sell this to state governments around the country.
Hit me up if you want me to have a go.
Let's talk about Barbie. Now, you recently posted a reel on Instagram inspired by the Barbie movie, but you were talking about the company behind the doll, Mattel.
Is it the doll, not the doll as in Centrelink payment?
The doll, as in the Barbie doll.
Yeah, the Barbie doll, yeah.
Mattel, which has made Barbie dolls for, 50, 60 years?
Long time.
Long time. Tell me about your research, because this was really, really interesting.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. So I got a little bit frustrated because I was seeing on social media all these people talking about investing in Barbie. It's the new trend and, we should be buying Barbie stock. And I could see all these red flags and warnings coming up around me. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a little bit of digging. Let's look at Mattel as a stock, because you're not investing in Barbie dolls. You're investing in the company that, has the licensing rights to Barbie. So I did some digging and I had to dig quite deeply. But according to Ben Zinger, and I thought this was fascinating, if you invested $1,000 into Mattel stock in 1997, approximately 26 years ago, it would be worth today, assuming dividends are reinvested, $1,688. Now, a return of, a profit of $688, does that sound pretty good to you?
It would sound good if it was just in isolation and it wasn't over a long period of time. So I'm so wary of what you're. I'm going to say.
I'm not setting you up for failure here. I tried to, and you outsmarted me. Damn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let me give you a different answer. No, that doesn't. I mean, yes, that sounds great, Canna.
Well, there is. Oh my God, damn. I mean, useless actor. Okay, you're right. That is a return of 2.61% per annum, because that's over 26 years. And there are all these people jumping up and down on social media about how we should be, where's Barbie now going with all these new operations and licensing agreements they've got, and it's going to be Barbie this, Barbie that, and, it's blowing up. So that is very interesting. And if you then go and compare this, and it's so important to actually never look at a return, as you actually have very accurately pointed out, is you've got to look at it in comparison to something else. So you can actually get a sense of what is good value and what is not, or what is a good return. So instead, and this is according to Ben Zinger, if you invested $1,000 at exactly the same time into the S&P 500, say through an ETF, that would actually be worth $9,300 with an average return over the same period of time, 26 years, of 8.79%.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, much better. And this is the importance of not getting caught up in social media and actually, eyes wide open, take those rose-tinted glasses off and look at what you're investing and actually have a point of comparison to understand what is good value and what is not, and where the risks are, and not getting caught up in, pop culture and the media hype.
Well, I suppose, devil's advocate, how much attention do you think people actually pay to the hype? Do you really think that pop culture impacts our investing decisions like that?
Absolutely. I think people really underestimate the influence and impact pop culture has on our investment decisions. And I think it's a combination of things. Firstly, the fact that more and more people than ever before are starting to take their financial future more seriously. They're looking at that self-education path, which is why our podcast is obviously so popular. And they are wanting to make better decisions with their money. They want to break the cycle. They want to set themselves up correctly. So naturally, they're intrigued, they're inquisitive, they're inspired. And then you back it up with things that you are seeing around you. So you're seeing people queuing up to watch Barbie. You're seeing people having Barbie parties. You're seeing people buy Barbie paraphernalia. And so naturally you're thinking, wow, look at all these people, look at the trends here. I want to be a part of this. I want to jump on board and be a business owner of Mattel or a shareholder, or, I want a part of the action. And so I can see how that naturally can really cloud our investment decisions if we don't take things carefully.
Okay, then what about the role of social media in all of this? Because we actually started the show talking about TikTok. How much of the hype does come from places like Facebook and like Instagram and like TikTok? And I suppose you would say that the hype potentially would be a lot more almost invasive. It's kind of everywhere now. That say if this was to happen, say 30 years ago, the Barbie movie came out, there may not have been the same hype because it's not on your phones, it's not in your faces every single minute of the day because of TikTok and Instagram.
Look, I think you're completely on the money here. Those consumer brands fill our social media feed. So therefore they are front of mind when we're thinking about, what's the next big, great investment, the next big Microsoft or, the next Tesla stock, whatever it may be. You're looking around you and we're being fed by our algorithms. However, the next best investment could be a transportation company or, a utility provider, something that's doesn't actually sit or get any exposure on social media. So we've got to be very careful about what we're being exposed to and actually taking a step back and looking at the whole wide world and, okay, well, we're in a recording studio right now, who's making the microphones and, who's building, the office around us and who's driving cars as we sit in this studio right now. Like there are lots of other things where you can become very narrow-minded when it comes to, social media.
And I suppose the problem is that utility companies aren't very sexy.
No, I was going to use the word sexy, but I thought, I've used sexy a lot, and I'm probably not appreciating my excessive word of usage of the word sexy.
Well, usually you're describing super as sexy.
Yeah, I know.
I think it just changes things up to refer to a utility company as being sexy for once. Give the utility companies a bit of a run. Is it the same, though, for then we talk about Barbie and we talk about Mattel and the hype around that. Is it the same then for companies that are always in the media? So think of, say, your Apple or your Tesla. Is there a chance then that owners or investors rather would get caught up in the hype just because they are always being covered in the media? You're always hearing about kind of product launches with Apple, or you're always hearing what, say, kind of Elon Musk is saying about Tesla, and that this hype just becomes this big, big thing, and that investors do get drawn in by that. It might not be on social media, but it might just be in the old school mainstream media.
Absolutely. 100%. It's not just social media. And obviously I'm talking from, what triggered my curiosity was what I was seeing on social media with, the whole Barbie story. But the other big thing I think is looking at, if you want to be part of a trend, step back and have a look at what's the connection. So really doing your research. And it's interesting, I was doing my deep dive into the Barbie world, I was reading about the company Crocs, that make those super unsexy shoes that people either love or hate. Do you like Crocs, before I offend you?
No. Do I look like a Croc person?
Well, I don't know. You might, cruising around the streets of Como, you might like to slip on a pair of Crocs.
I am not I don't think I've ever worn Crocs. No, I haven't worn. I feel like I'm under attack here. I'm
being sensitive for once towards you.
Thank you. Just mark this date on the calendar. The first time that Hannah took my feelings into account on this podcast. Please go on.
Well, look, Crocs, and I'm not recommending people, invest in Crocs stock whatsoever, but it was just the connection, because this article that I was reading was talking, again, very similar about the frustration of people jumping on this whole Barbie hype and, whether Mattel was the next big stock to buy. And it was actually talking about all these companies that are interconnected that have licensing rights to Barbie. And it used the example of Crocs. And it was saying that this is a business that is a very robust business. It's got some fantastic track records, consistent dividends, and they now have the licensing rights to make Barbie Crocs. So perhaps that's the next big investment, is looking at, okay, well, what's the flow-on effect? How are all these businesses interconnected? And can you be a part of that trend in perhaps a more diversified, rational headspace, and also, but after doing research and making sure your portfolio is properly diversified. But it's a way of not just being caught up in the herd mentality and the media hype and all the rush and the emotions and the drive, and actually go, well, who else are going to benefit? Because maybe Crocs or 5 or 6 or 7 other companies that are connected and have access to the success of Barbie are going to have bigger, better profit margins. And Mattel, when you look at what's gone wrong with that company and why that return was so low, it's actually, in fact, that they haven't paid a single dividend since 2017 because they had huge issues with managing debt in the business.
Okay.
So whilst it may appear to be a very successful business, it's actually gone through quite a bit of turmoil. And people don't understand it's not just about selling stuff, it's also about the management of that business. Okay. How are they managing staff? How are they managing their research and development? How are they handling debts? What are they doing to look after their shareholders? How stable is the workforce there? There's so many different dynamics. So I guess it's about eyes wide open, as I said, and looking at the big picture and what other options are there available if you want to be a part of a hype.
Okay, so taking a step back and looking at the bigger trend and say, for instance, the cinema companies that is suddenly kind of going, okay, we're seeing box office records being broken. This is potentially reviving cinema and we'll see the kind of a new golden age of cinema. Just taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture and what other companies might actually benefit from the hype around Barbie.
Exactly.
Oh, look, I'm learning. I want to ask you about influencers as well. We might, though, take a break. Influencers is going to be an interesting one because it is really about the influence that you exert online and about having an engaged following and about the declaration of interests and the declaration of expertise and also ensuring that you're not misrepresenting claims. And so I know this is a topic that you are very passionate about. And I almost need a break just to prepare myself for what I know is coming. It's like when I get you onto a superannuation topic or something where I just need to just pause for a moment, just psych myself up and just almost brace myself. On an airplane when they say practice the brace position.
In the meantime, I feel like I'm a bull in the running of the bulls, and I'm just just dragging my feet, getting ready to just charge at the red flag.
It's a very interesting mixed metaphor. Here I am in the brace position on an aeroplane, and you're a bull about to charge up the aisle of the plane. We're going to take a break and we'll come back in a moment. All right, Canna, we are talking about blockbusters and social media hype, and we've talked a lot about the Barbie movie and the importance of kind of taking a step back and looking at the bigger trend and the bigger investing ecosystem around the hype. But I want to talk to you about influencers because they are clearly part of the social media hype. And I think one of the biggest risks here is people spruiking products perhaps without qualifications, sometimes without declaring their own interest in them as well. Taking recommendations from people online, just how risky is that?
Well, ASIC have actually really clamped down on finfluencers, and all the financial influencers have been warned, you must stick within the guidelines. And if you're not licensed, you actually really are sailing very close to the wind. So, obviously I'm a financial planner, so I am, licensed through WealthStream, but if you are not qualified, you've really got to be, you're very limited into really what you can talk about. And you're not even really supposed to share your own personal story because that can be interpreted by the average person as indirectly being advice, which is, fraught with danger. So the thing is, though, I really like a lot of financial influencers. They have incredibly inspiring stories. They're very motivating, and they can at times provide a lot of great factual information. However, the problem that comes in is they don't know what they don't know. And I actually did a podcast about this before ASIC, stepped in, and it was called, Financial Influences, The Danger of Not Knowing What They Don't Know. And I spoke about the issues and I guess landmines that come from listening to something that you don't know is actually not all the information to make an educated decision. And it really does boil down to that person's interpretation. Anyway, the podcast that particular episode did extremely well.
Oh, wow.
And I decided, after it got picked up by a few media outlets and was quoted, I decided to just take it down because I had, made my point loud and clear. And it wasn't about pulling apart financial influences because they do have their place. But the issues or the alarm bells that I see is they're sharing a very fragmented source of their financial strategy. And they don't understand that the particular product that they're talking about, even if they don't intentionally mean to be seen as advice, is they're not talking about, for example, the timeframes involved. So they will talk about some factual information about stocks. But to the average person that's new to their financial journey and has, a very simple level of financial literacy, may not understand that that particular investment is for a long-term investor and for a high-growth investor that's experienced and is comfortable watching high levels of volatility for their portfolio. The other thing that a lot of financial influencers fail to touch on is making people aware of taxes, income tax. And this is a really big alarm bell for myself personally, is a lot of people, I discovered, assume that when dividends are reinvested, you don't have to pay any tax on it. And when I went digging to find out where have people got this idea that if you reinvest your dividends, you don't need to pay tax, a lot of it boiled down to people that had seen something online from financial influencers. So I then had this rush of people going, what do you mean you have to pay tax? And a bit of this created this panic. And then also a lot of financial influencers don't touch on risk profiling and how important it is to do a risk profile before you make investment decisions. And when you give someone those bits of information and that advice about doing a risk profile, importance of diversification, understanding that you do have to pay tax and all the, life admin that comes from investing, it means they're going to make a better decision. And the other big red flag or thing that really worries me about financial influencers, there are a lot of people who have gone out and started investing in, I wouldn't say high risk, but maybe high volatile investments such as a share portfolio. And that money is their deposit money for their home.
Oh, dear.
So that's what I'm talking about. That's a concern because those people have built this amazing portfolio, which is great and really inspirational and extremely admirable, but they don't realize the risk that they're holding with that portfolio because that is a naturally highly volatile investment and that is something that they don't necessarily have the benefit of time if they're planning on using that share portfolio as their deposit to purchase a home in, say, 1, 2, 3 years' time.
So then looking at financial influences then, what should you be, if you want some inspiration from somebody online, what should you actually be looking for? Someone who has a qualification, or someone who actually tells you the whole story rather than just a fragment of it?
Exactly. Look, I would say look at really at the end of the day their qualifications and understand the difference between someone who has a general advice license versus a financial planning license, because there's a big difference in qualifications and also the actual protection that you have from a financial planner, because we are legally liable for whatever comes out of our mouth. And then you look at, okay, well, how am I going to interpret this advice? Am I going to use this as a source of inspiration and motivation, or am I using it actually to make investment decisions? So, you be sensible, be wise, and don't be afraid to question. If something doesn't make sense or they're missing something really important, don't be afraid to comment or DM them and say, hang on, I think you're missing this and that. And someone who's a good content creator and a good influencer, whether they're a financial planner or they're just creating general content, they will reply back and say, you know what, you're right, or explain why they haven't explained certain points.
Okay.
I don't want to be arrogant. I'm just making people aware of the difference between, it's like seeing a specialist versus...
Yeah. No, I understand what you mean. It's and I think that's why it's important to actually just focus on that for a little bit, because we are talking about where this hype comes from. And we talk about it coming from the movie. We talk back on Barbie, obviously. We talk about it coming from social media. And a lot of that then comes from influencers. And it doesn't take much for somebody to be able to call themselves an influencer. There is a high degree of risk there that someone can be influenced in the wrong direction And I think that was actually a really good list that you've given us of the things to look for, so that if you are looking for inspiration, that you're going to be getting it from somebody who is at least qualified and is going to be held accountable for what they say.
Absolutely. It's serious stuff. I mean, this is your money. This is your life. You do not want to be filled with regret.
Yeah.
So be careful.
Okay, so look, to kind of wrap things up, when we get excited about trends, when we get excited, we go and see Barbie, or we watch it on streaming or something. See, I don't sound very excited about it, so I think I'm immune to the hype around Barbie. But
You're naturally cynical.
I am naturally cynical, and I enjoy that. It means then that it makes these conversations interesting, because everything that you say, I'm like, why? And so, but anyway, when we get excited about these trends and we want to be a part of it, how do we do it? What do you actually recommend here? We've kind of heard a lot about what we shouldn't do and what we should be wary of, but what do you recommend?
Well, take note of your emotions. Like FOMO, fear of missing out, is a real emotion, and it can come with irrational decisions and ones that sometimes come with regret. So understand, the hype and whether you want to be a part of it or not, and obviously making smart, intelligent decisions that benefit you right now and well into the future, but also get an understanding of the risk involved. Investing in shares is something that is a 10-year, if not indefinite time horizon. Also doing your research before you invest and understanding how different companies and even different industries are all interconnected, and how they all can potentially share in the profits and sometimes make the most of those profit opportunities. Diversification is another big one. And this is something I see with a lot of young people's portfolios when they, show me them. And I think, well, hang on, 80% of your portfolio is just exposed to one particular sector. And some of those companies don't pay any dividends at all. So you're wondering, okay, well, what's the purpose behind this portfolio? So diversification, understanding your goals, learning about the fact that shares really are a long-term investment. This is not something you'd invest in as your deposit money if you're planning on buying a property in the next couple of years. And being wary of the media. The media is something that can give you a really dangerous false understanding of profits. And I had to really dig deep to find this information about Mattel. And when I looked across the hundreds of different headlines, it was very misleading. It was almost, adding to the hype that I should be buying Mattel stock, when actually Mattel may not be the right type of stock for me, or maybe the timing is not right for me to be investing in Mattel stock. And no, that's not product advice whatsoever. I'm using it as an example.
Yeah, and it illustrates as well the benefit of getting professional advice, and particularly someone who might be able to help you see through some of the hype as well. If you're unsure, if you do have kind of questions about, if you don't understand, ask the question, ask for advice. And look, I think we have covered some really important points today. It feels like this is a bit of a warning, quite a stern warning from you today. And
yes, you could say that. I'll take that, Michael.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's good. And you did get fired up as well about the about influencers.
I did spit all over the microphone, so yes.
Yes, I think if that's the benchmark for being fired up, I can say that very wet-looking microphone is probably an indicator that you got fired up. All right, so look, we talked about Barbie. We talked about the company behind Barbie, Mattel, and the research that you did, because that is really interesting. Just the fact that $1,000 invested in 1997 was $1,688 in 2023. That is a 2.61% per annum return over 26 years. And the risk then that people would be drawn in by the hype around the film and around the company, and the need to do that research, to get deeper in behind the companies and look, take a step back then and ignore social media to the degree that if it's sending you in the wrong direction, that you just need to take a step back and do your own independent research before you make these investment decisions. And also to be aware of that when you're looking at other companies that are featuring in the media that may potentially send you as well in the wrong direction, because you are always seeing them featured in the news, or you're always seeing them profiled on different programs or in the newspaper. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be a good investment option for you. And that when you are looking at influencers, that you need to just take a critical approach to social media and look for people with qualifications who are actually held to account for what they say, because these are people that have actually done research and have actually done the study and done the time to understand what they're talking about and know what they can and can't say and know how to frame their content so that it is general information and won't lead people in the wrong direction. It is just, it's such a minefield, isn't it? And you see a lot of people kind of venturing into social media and just potentially putting themselves in a great deal of harm.
Absolutely. And that's what I just want to make people aware of it so that they can see it and choose what they want to act on and what they just want to maybe go away and do a little bit more research on before they make a decision.
And some of those principles that you said as well, that understand the impact of your emotions, that particularly things that are carrying a lot of hype, that are trending, are going to impact on your emotions. And there is that potential for FOMO, but that you are actually dealing with real money. You are dealing with your money, and that you are dealing with something that should arguably be quite a long-term investment and a long-term strategy rather than just kind of the hype of this year or this month or this weekend. And that really those principles of investing are still key, that diversification is essential and that you need to do your research and you really should get some professional independent advice as well. I think that's fairly comprehensive.
You're sounding like me.
I know. Just over time, because obviously we recently passed our 1 year anniversary, and I feel like gradually I'm becoming more like you.
I feel like I'm becoming more like you.
We're going to meet somewhere in the middle. It's going to be some weird kind of hybrid of a person. Look, if people want more information and want to see, say, that reel that we talked about that you created about Mattel, but also want to see how you convey information online in a way that is not sending people down specific investment kind of paths, but just more about educating people about the options that are out there so that they can do their own research, where do we find you?
The best place to get in contact with me is actually on Instagram. So if you shoot me through a DM, I'll come back to you as soon as I possibly can. And of course, you can reach out through my website, Sugar Mama TV, and get a free budget template if you like.
Oh, excellent. And you can hear me every day with Sean Aylmer on Fear and Greed, Australia's best business podcast. Thank you very much for listening to How Do They Afford That? Remember to hit follow on the podcast and please leave us a review as well. Next week, we are talking about a really important topic. It is, we are obviously still in a bit of a cost of living crisis, and it is hitting people hard. And so next week, we're going to talk about what to do when you have run out of money. As I said, it's a very serious conversation. Don't miss it.